onto my computer, so it's not out on the cloud right now. So that's doing its thing. Alrighty, well, thank you everybody for coming and welcome to our online webinar, number one in our series of amazing information and exciting speakers. Today, notwithstanding, is our first amazing and solutions pioneer, Buzz Wood. He's a product evangelist. He actually explains things better than most people I know. And so that's really a very important skill. Yes, that's you. I know those headphones are working. So he uses audio and video to communicate ideas. He has an excellent podcast called The Buzz on Education that I was just partnered with him this past couple of days developing, and he can talk to you a little bit about how horrific I did. But after, a little practice and some tips from Buzz, I did much better. So that's why I think today you'll also enjoy what we learned. Um, Also, he's been in the education field for a long time.
At
And
least a year.
so I hope he'll tell you some of the stories that I've heard, although I don't think we have, it's not happy hour, but anyway, maybe some of those stories can be shared, and we can talk a little bit about what's happening in education and how we can deal with some of these issues. So no more from me. I'm muting, and Buzz, thank you. And thank you so much again, and welcome.
Well, thanks so much, Laura. I really appreciate the opportunity. And there are a lot of stories. And since it is 5 o'clock Eastern, if you need to get a libation, now would be the time to do that. So help yourselves. We're going to cover a lot of stuff. I like to call this more like a sprint than anything, because there's going to be quite a bit of information we're going to cover. And what I can tell you is that you can either play this back, as Laura mentioned, or we're going to develop a PDF with links in it that you can click on and learn more about these products, buy them if you want to. And they're ones that I've tried around the AV world. And since we're now really focusing on remote and distance types of connections, the baseline for all of this is if you have crappy audio or bad video, then you usually get lost in translation, or your message does anyway. And then a lot of times people just feel befuddled that they can't get it together. And what we're going to try to do is make it very simple. It's going to be very interactive. So we'll have some Q&A at the end. So write your questions down. I'll take them at the end. It's easier that way. And then we'll kind of demystify this whole thing, so that you, if you make the investment in a microphone, or you do something with your your camera, your iPhone or Android handset to record video or use video, you'll kind of get the whole vibe of how it comes together, and realize that you've got quite a bit of power right under your feet, or right in your hands in many cases. So I kind of thought of dividing it in a number of ways for you. First, cabling, because that's always the real secret sauce of how do you make connections. Next, I'm going to show you a number of cases. I've got all this stuff behind me here that I'll demonstrate to you, so you see it live. And then different frames that can hold different devices. That's also another thing. And then lastly, microphones, and then some applications that'll help you. And probably it's easy to start now to tell you that audio, believe it or not, is the big elephant in the room. So when you're shooting video, you could shoot a marginal shot. You may even have it frame bad, where you've got more head space than you do anything. Tighter shots are better. People don't like tight shots because they go, oh, you can see my wrinkles or whatever. But tight shots, believe it or not, evoke emotion. They make a better connection. So knowing those kinds of things, that shooting tighter is better. I'm a big believer in wide angle lenses, because wide angle lenses, as you can imagine, get a lot of content in. So you can be very close. So you can have a microphone, or rather a camera like this, very, very close, and yet you'll have this really wide shot. So we'll talk a little bit about wide angle, and as we get to that part of it. So having the right audio, though, again, is going to carry the shot. So if you don't shoot a great shot, or it doesn't look super good, if the audio is pristine, it'll sell the shot, is what we call it. So, and that gets overlooked a lot. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Probably another good place to begin when you're talking about audio is that many of you are probably using a laptop with a camera in the bezel and then a microphone somewhere. Probably don't even know where it is. It's like a little nondescript hole in some cases, or there's sometimes they're positioned in the bezel, and they do a pretty decent job. But if you're not right up on them, it can sound like you're talking in a trash can, or it sounds echoey, and people are like going, they're just not hearing me. My sister-in-law teaches fourth grade over in California. She had this very problem because she decided to get bold and read a book to kids using her laptop, and they couldn't hear her, and the framing of the shot was really poor because the laptop was down on her desk and was shooting mostly up under her chin, or like up, even up her nose. And she's like, gosh, it's really annoying. And as you can see me talking to all of you, I'm looking right in the lens of my webcam. And it's really hard because usually, like, all of you see thumbnails of everyone that's in this chat, right? Or you'll see some representation in the gallery of a thumbnail. And sometimes it's really hard because you want to look at, like, I want to look at Laura as an example, Dr. Z, but I force myself to look in the lens because it makes a better connection. It looks like I'm talking right at you. So it's kind of a discipline type of thing. And it seems kind of silly that people don't do that, but you'll find people a lot of times they'll be like down like this. They're not really looking in the lens, that type of thing. They bang into the microphone like I just did. Those are some of the kind of techniques with that. The microphone, again, is the big deal here. And you can get USB microphones for as little as $20 or $30. Some of the moderate ones will be maybe 40 or 50, and then you can kind of go up from there. A pro mic like this one that you see me using, believe it or not, this thing's only 99 bucks. It's not a lot of money, plugs right into your computer. I have this, arm that allows me to move it or retract it and move it in like that. I do a lot of podcasting, so this is kind of more of a pro rig. You don't need anything as extravagant as this. But a little microphone, like I was saying, for $30 or $40 will make all the difference in the world. Plugs right into your USB. There's a bunch of them on B&H Photo, which is one I shop a lot, or on Amazon. So if you're looking for AV products, Amazon and B&H are like my two go-tos because those guys have just about everything in scale. So small to medium budgets, in large budgets, you can find it all there. Most of the microphones that people use, they sometimes get too close to them or they get too far away, those types of things. Now you can see on my mic, I'll just turn it here so you can see it. I have a pencil that I put. And the pencil I let rest on my face or on my jaw, so it always keeps me the same distance. So if I move away and come back, I'll know exactly the distance I was at. So the pencil trick's kind of a fun thing if you have a microphone that you want to make sure that you keep that distance consistent. So doing that kind of makes the volume always the same. So if you're recording something for your students or you're recording something that you're going to put out in the world, you want to maintain the consistency of the sound level and those types of things. So a little thing like a pencil keeps your face, again, a certain distance. Otherwise, you'll crowd the mic or you'll be too far away, and you always want to maintain the proper distance. The other thing about microphones is that once you connect them, you want to kind of you can either have them in frame. I don't know if you can see Laura's. She has one much like me in frame. It's not a sin. No one's going to care as long as they're hearing you great and it doesn't get in the way of what you're trying to do on camera. If it gets in your way and you're banging into it, then it's not a good thing. But yeah, Laura's got hers. She's showing hers off. But it, again, makes all the difference in the world. And keep in mind too that if someone's moving around their mobile and they can't watch your video, having pristine audio, again, it pays dividends because sometimes they'll just listen to the audio part and not the video because they can't watch it while they're driving or they're in a place where they can only listen. So when you think about broadcasting or having your video and audio go out, think about that too, because sometimes people just listen to you and versus see you. But having both video and audio together is the real winner, particularly if you have something you're showing or an example you're moving with. That's a big deal. Let's talk about connection with microphones because that's the big Achilles heel that everybody gets. I've heard so many people say, I spent like crazy money, like $200 on a microphone, and I plugged it into my phone, and didn't even work. So it wasn't even worth it. It was still the same tinny, echoey kind of audio. And the problem was this, and I'm going to show it to you right here. This is a typical, and you may not be able to see it. I'll try to get it closer. This is your typical headphone jack. It's the one we've known and loved for years. We plugged it into all kinds of, you know, devices, and it was just, you know, just a straight up headphone jack. And that was great up until the point when phones became smartphones. And smartphones, as you may recall or know, they have this little interrupt, like right here, where it controls the volume and pauses audio, like fast forwards audio, moves to the next song, and there's a little bit of control in there. When this came into play with the advent of smartphones, the connection changed ever so slightly into uh, a, a connector that looked like the one I just showed you, but this one has 3 black bands where this one only has 2 black bands. They're in and about the same length. In fact, they're identical in the same length, but there's 2 bands on the standard headphone jack and 3 on this one. And the technical term, if you want to know it, this is TRS and this is TRRS. It stands for tip, ring, ring, sleeve, if you really want to know. But good to know that it's TRS versus TRRS. TRS, again, it's the old headphone jack we know and love. This one is the one for the more modern smartphone and even iPads and other tablets. And it carries that other capability of turning volume up and down. Now, why this is important to you is this, is that when you connect a microphone, and most microphones have this type of jack, and you plug it into a phone that requires this kind of jack, there's no communication. It doesn't happen. So you need something that makes this connection from TRS to TRRS. And I'll guarantee you guys will write Laura and me and go, unbelievable. I cannot believe the difference this makes, because then the microphone lights up and becomes active and you're like, wow, it's like I'm booming. And it really makes the difference over the silly little cable. I know you're like, how come no one tells us these things? And there are people that write about it. I'm not the only guy that knows this, but to explain it to educators, I do all the time. And I get tons of emails about, thank God you told me this simple little thing. Now, when using cell phones, particularly iPhones or Android phones, you probably know this little guy. When Apple went to lightning connectors instead of headphone jacks on their phones, everybody had to buy this little dongle, the one you've lost probably 17 times. I think they're probably making tons of money on these guys. They're only $10, but you know, I think I've bought about 8 of these for my kids. I don't know if they're eating them or losing them, but anyway, you need this to plug into the base of the phone, and then your microphone plugs into this TRRS connection. And then to the microphone is the TRS connection, the one that it uses all the time. Audio products do that. If you have an Android phone that uses USB-C, here's a dongle for that. I think there's one iPhone that has USB-C now, but you need these types of little dongles to make the connection into the phone so that the phone then recognizes the microphone. So, and now if you have an older phone and it has a headphone jack, you don't need these. But in the newer phones from at least the last couple of years or more, you got these guys. Once you have these, then you can plug in these wonderful microphones and get a really terrific, use out of an extended mic. Everybody got that one? Okay, TRS, TRRS. The good news again is not only can you play this back, but I'm making this PDF list for you. So you'll see these connectors. I'll note them where you can buy them, what the price is, include the URL so you don't have to type and do a search yourself. Just click on it and you'll have it all together. All right, so that's cabling. Let's take a look at microphones because they're going to connect to these cables, okay? Let me get one. There's a couple of choices. There's these types, which are called shotgun mics, okay? And they sit on top of cases of different sorts. They kind of screw onto what they call a cold shoe. You can mount them in different ways. There's other types of mounting. We'll talk about that in a second. I like microphones that have their own batteries, whether that's a AA or most of these have 9-volt batteries. And the reason is this. You can get microphones that are advertised and they have no battery. Those are called phantom mics. And the reason that they're called phantom mics is that they use the power from your phone. So if you're out shooting video and you're capturing video and you see your battery life nosediving beyond the fact that you're recording with it, it's sucking some life out to make a microphone light up when it's a phantom mic. Powered mics don't have that problem. They run on their own battery and they're self-powered. It's the best thing. And these batteries can last, believe it or not, for a while, like a year. because it draws so little power when it's using its own battery. But for some reason, when connected to phones, it just drains them like a vampire. So again, a microphone like this is a Boya, and this is a nice little microphone. It's 39 bucks. I've got one in the PDF I'm sending to you guys. I think it's like $20 and change. It's a very similar microphone to this. They're all kind of like the same. And these microphones are good about 6 to 8 feet. They have what they call a dispersion cone, or like a cone of that captures the audio, or they'll even have almost a globe type of capture. They're good, again, like around 6 feet, maybe a little more if you're lucky. If you're going to do something further away than that, then you're going to probably say, hey, these mics didn't work that great because it's too far. But by and large, if you're within a few feet of somebody, particularly if you're shooting a wide angle, which lets you get closer, which is why another benefit of wide angle lenses, these will do just great, and they're inexpensive. So a lot of the stuff that we're going to show you today, you guys could probably get for well under $100 top to bottom, frame the whole bit, and be shooting like pro style stuff. And you'd be just surprised. People don't think they can do that, but they can, and this is one of them. So 39 bucks for this. It has a big brother that's, I think, 59. It has just a different type of sound attenuation here, where you can click it one more time and it mutes extraneous sounds, just stuff that's out there in the world that you don't want. It kind of reduces the noise. And again, it's only like $20 more, and you can find all different kinds, and we're talking about them now. So this is probably the least expensive that I would recommend. And again, I found another one like this, again, in your list for about 20. Okay. Speaking of phantom mics, this is one made by Rode. This little furry thing, if you've ever seen these, they're affectionately called dead cats. You can imagine why. They're very soft like a cat. But wherever you use the dead cat is this furry thing is for a mitigation of wind. So if you've ever heard somebody out in the world shooting video and it's like, it's all this wind and stuff, it's because they're not using a dead cat to kill the wind. If you have moderate amount of wind, this foam cushion does fine. But if you're really in a windy thing, this is really the kind of deal. Now, this is a Phantom because this has no battery in it. It plugs directly into your camera or your phone. And this being a smaller mic than this bigger one, draws very little. So this one's forgivable for drawing power, but for the most part, I still like powered ones. But this is a company called Rode. They're an Australian company, Rode. They make mics probably better than just about anybody, and they're all manufactured in Australia. And these guys are really good. So. Okay, a little bit more up on pricing. The little Rode mic I showed you is like 59 bucks to get. But this is something that Laura got when I showed her. And a lot of times you'll see people either wear a microphone that's called a lavalier mic. It's a lapel mic. Usually it's wired and it goes down somebody's shirt and out the back, and it can get rather technical. Like if you were ever going to like a conference like FETC or TCEA or ISTE or a conference that you went to about crafts or whatever. A lot of times they're shot in auditoriums or big conference centers, and there's lots of noise in the air from Wi-Fi and you name it, LTE. And microphones sometimes have a struggle with that because they can't communicate well. The stuff interferes with them. So you want to make sure you get shielded connections and shielded mics so that you can hear yourself. So a lot of times people will do lav mics because they can get a nice tight shot or a good shot on somebody. But it's always tough if you want to pull someone aside and go, hey, can I wire you, and pull the cord down their shirt or have them do it. And it's just kind of clumsy and people kind of get nervous. So what happened was the guys at Rode said, we've got a solution to this. And what they did is they came up with this little tandem. Let me show them properly. These two little cubes. They are self-powered lithium batteries. They use USB-C, and they clip like this on your person. So one for you, and then the other one will attach to your rig. And I'll show you how it does. It has a really unique way of fitting onto your rig. And so one is the transmitter, and the other is the receiver. And you can simply go and clip somebody immediately and get booming sound with this. In fact, Laura and I were laughing about it. It has its own little dead cat. I think I guess they call it dead mouse or whatever, but they call them dead cats. But it clips in here, so if you had it using it outside, they even thought of doing something like that. But you really don't need it for the kind of thing we're talking about. But this is like $199. I know it's $200. People may go, well, that's a little bit much. But if you start really getting into it, and you really want to get really pristine recordings, this is a great way to go. It clips on easily. It pairs painlessly, and it's completely shielded. Nothing will interfere. You won't, if you're, again, if you're in a conference center and the janitor has somebody spilled a Coke a couple aisles over and they key up a microphone and go, yeah, we have a spill on aisle 10. Sometimes that stuff will come pounding in when you're recording somebody. If it's a one-off, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe where that came from. Won't have that with this. This is completely shielded. $199. They stay charged. The batteries are terrific, and they're just great to use. So, in fact, Rode just announced today an ability to take this and put it on a small post, so you could do man on the street kind of interviews. It's $29 for the post. It's like a piece of plastic, basically. This thing slides in the top. It has its own little wind muff that goes over it, not a dead cat, but a foam ball. And it's really great because you could do the man on the street thing, and this is connected to your camera, and this is in that little stem thing, and you're going back and forth like, like your man on the street. So it's kind of cool. So it's not only just a lapel mic anymore, it can also be like a stick mic, which is kind of fun. And again, $199 for this. Pretty cool, huh, Laura? Right? Yeah. Okay, one last mic, and then we're going to move on to some frames and stuff because I want to show you this. This is fun stuff. Now, this mic is the most expensive one that I'm going to show today. The last one was $199. This is $249, and you're going to go, wow, is this like a rocket ship or something? I go, no, it's not. It's a USB-C connected lithium battery, no batteries to add. Simple plug and play, painless, but this microphone is like on steroids. This sucker can catch audio from just about anything you point it at, like miraculously, and suck it in. It has all kinds of cool features. I won't go through all the buttons and stuff, but there are ways to get brighter audio, attenuate the audio. Even has a gain wheel. Now, what's good about this is that if somebody goes, I don't know if I can hear them that well, you can actually turn the gain up manually. It's just really easy. It's an analog thing. It's not digital. You don't have to push a button, and it just turns like that. And then you can hear how bright it gets when you're doing it. And that is one thing, is that these headphones here are like, I don't know, $29. Got some Sonys here that I use. These Sonys, are the ones that fold flat like this. These were like $17, just kind of on ear, not over ear. But it's always good to make sure that you do testing where you can hear playback on your audio. And the reason this is important is like, I was down in South Florida, and we had a superintendent come by, just walking by, and he agreed to let us video, tape him, record him. And you want to be dead to rights on that, because once he leaves and you go, oh my God, the audio didn't come through, you can't get that fish back. He's gone. It's just like you can't catch him again. So you got to make sure you're dead to rights on it. So always do those kinds of testing, and make sure that you have the right connections with the audio, because you could buy all the stuff and buy the cables, I'm telling you, and then you go, how didn't you have the right audio? You just got to make sure. And every videographer will body check themselves and make sure that they've got the right connections, because sometimes you can hear it and you think it's going into the camera, and it may not be. So just word of the wise, buy yourself some headphones, or if you've got earbuds, you can use those as well. A lot of people do, just to make sure that you hear the audio that you think you're recording. And that's a big step. It gets missed a lot. I just did it myself, and I could have shot myself, because it wasn't a one-off, but it was a lot of work to recreate it. And it happens to the best of it, because when you're rushing, you're kind of slapping it together. Okay, let's talk about kits. And these are mounting kits of different sorts for your rigs, because what you'll have is you got a lot of moving pieces here. You got microphones, you got a phone, camera phone, you've got maybe some headphones, so after a while you're like, good God, how do I, make all this work and stay in one place? And so I'm going to show you those kinds of things right now. Now, this one is one of my favorites because it's inexpensive. They now are around, I got them for around $15-16. Now, I see that they're up to around 24. I guess the word got out on them. But what these are frames that let you pistol grip, let you hold like this, and they mount the microphone like you see on this, what they call a cold shoe adapter. So the microphone just slides into this and you use this thumb screw to screw it down. But this is a pinch kind of connector that holds your phone. I'm going to put mine in and show it to you. So I got a Pixel Android phone here. I'll slip it in. It's really easy to use. And they designed it where these red buffers are actually V-cut because there's buttons on the side of your phone for volume and whatnot. And if you have a flat connector, it pushes on those volume controls, and you're like, "What the heck's going on?" So they wisely cut like a V shape in there so that it doesn't disturb those buttons that are on the side of our phones. But what it does is it holds the phone in place like this. And here's the camera lens right here. Okay. And then using the dongle that we showed you before, you plug this in here, and most phones immediately know that there's an external device. They auto sense is what it's called. They auto sense the connection. You got to make sure you turn it on. I had somebody go, "This thing's not working." I go, "What color's the light in the back?" And they go, "What light?" And I go, "The light in the back. Is it red or green?" And they go, "There's no light." And I go, "It's not switched on." And then another person called me and said, "There's no light." And I go, "Well, switch it on." They go, "I did. There's no light." I go, "Well, did you put the battery in?" And they're like, "What battery?" So, it's a whole comedy of errors, but people go through it. Even the pros do. They do stupid stuff all the time because we're just human. But anyway, this is very light rig. In fact, I've got it on this Joby stand, one of these Gorilla stands that wrap around stuff. And so you can hold it like this and get a really cool thing. In fact, the terminology that when you do this is called pan and scan. Like you can pan like a pro, and people go, "Wow, did you have that on a Steadicam?" And you're like, "No, just using my arms," because you can put your elbows into your sides and kind of guide it along like that, and get a really cool, very smooth, buttery shot. And again, most of the new phones, the optics are pretty good. Now, this Pixel shoots a really great shot. The iPhone 11 shoots really super shots, but I wanted a little something more. And so I'll talk about that in just a second. I'm going to cover some more frames, but I'm going to come back to this because this is really a cool thing. It'll make you go crazy because you're probably thinking, how much money is he going to have me spending? But it's worth talking about. But again, this is around a $25 frame. Hold your phone, put that $20 microphone, or you can pay $59 or $199 or whatever the microphone you want, mounts here, connects to this. Whole new world. And again, the optics are pretty good on these new phones that you don't need to embellish them too much, but we'll talk about that in just a second. Oh yeah, here's one. Now, some of you may say, "Well, that's a lot of moving pieces for me, and that won't fit in my bag, my backpack, my purse, whatever." Here's something that Shure made. It's really cool. And it mounts on this little, got a tripod here. A company called Monfrotto makes these little mounts. I like these. These guys are really cool because you can grab them like this and use them like a pistol. Like you can move them around like that, and then you can sometimes set them up. And you push this little button that rotates this mount, like it's like a ball joint right here. So it rotates around. I'll show you on this one because it's good to have something mounted on it. But you just squeeze this and you can move it, angle it any which way you want. It's really cool. And these things are only, I think, $20, something like that. Get them at Best Buy, B&H, Amazon, you name it. But they're cool for just a little table stand like that. And people use them. And again, they'll pick them up and they'll do this kind of thing with them. And they do that also with the Joby ones, like the Gorilla Pod I had. But with this one, Shure actually had Monfrotto make this for them. So it's the same thing. And here I'll squeeze the button, demonstrate this rotation. See how it moves all around like that? So you can tip it and angle it. The phone fits in here. And again, you can see there's this V cut, again, like it did on the other frame. And you can put your phone in, and then it plugs this microphone they provide. Sure does this for, like, I think it's $249, something like that. Plugs right into your phone, painless. Now here's the cool part. In the back here is a headphone jack. All right. So what are you thinking? Hey, I want to get my headphones or my earbuds and stick them in there so that I can hear what I'm recording, because this records in stereo. In fact, they designed this mic where the right side's the right mic or right speaker. This one's on the left. So you could literally have, like in the case of Laura, Laura could be talking over on the left side and I could be talking on the right. Now, you can blend the two, but and many people won't discern the difference too much unless they got headphones on. But it's kind of cool to have that duplex audio. But this thing's got a really great range. And it's a one-stop thing. It comes with all the cables, thing to hold your phone, even comes with this little tripod, again, around $249. You're done. You're ready to go. You can start shooting video with the existing lens you've got and this terrific microphone. And you can point the mic to yourself if you're shooting like an IGTV, you know, an Instagram television shot. Or you're doing something on Facebook or just a post you're going to do. Or if you're interviewing somebody, you can rotate it around the other way and record pointing at the subject matter you have. But that's a really kind of a cool deal, right? The microphone's very abbreviated, but it's super sensitive. And Shure is one of the better mic manufacturers out there going. So that's another cool setup. Again, a lot of times people just want something simple. Look at for $249, I can do that. This is a good starting point to do that kind of thing. All right, let's talk about lenses, because we did talk already about how the camera lenses that you have in these, and even in iPads for that matter, are pretty good. But if you want to step it up just a little bit, not a ton of money, I'll talk about the cash in a sec. Again, you got a $25 frame, $30 or $40 microphone, shotgun mic. This case that's around this phone is $39. Not a heck of a lot of money for a case. It protects it, it's good, but it's something more than that. A company called Moment has a lens. I'll show the lens. I'll take the lens cover off here in a minute. This lens assembly does this. It fits on here and turns about a quarter turn and locks in. And then you get this big, juicy, wide angle lens right here. I have a filter on it too. It's about $140. So, well, the lens itself is $118, and then this big honking filter is like another $49 or something like that. So anyway, you get this whole type of thing. And again, we'll provide all these connections for you on the PDF so that you guys see. I think Laura's just echoing that. But this gives you this beautiful 18 millimeter wide shot that just is unbelievable. I mean, like just nothing you've seen. And it couples with the case against the optics that are in the phone. And they make these for iPhones, they make them for Android, make them for Samsung. But if you're really going to do some serious shooting and you're really going to think, hey, I'm going to make video a big deal about what I do, you know, what's going on in my life, or what you're shooting from you know, an instructional point of view, this is really the way to go. And also when you face it toward you, you can be like right up on it and you can shoot and show all kinds of stuff, because again, it's super wide. But when you talk about doing these kinds of things with this simple frame and a simple microphone like this, and you put the money in a nice lens like this, you're going to get this really beautiful buttery video that'll come out. These camera phones, believe it or not, these shoot 4K. Now, everyone goes, well, I don't have a 4K TV. And that's a good point. I used to shoot in nothing but what they called 1080p, which is most of what we watch in HD television. Most of the times, a lot of people still watching 720p. And so somebody will say to me, well, why would I ever want to shoot in 4K? And it's one of these kind of garbage in, garbage out deals. Like the more video data that you can shoot in something rich like 4K, when it dumbs down to 1080 or 720, it looks amazing. And people will go, what in the world did you shoot that on? You go, on my phone. And they're like, you're kidding me. And they're like, no. And it's just a small technique of setting the frame rates and the quality just through a selection. That's just simple. I mean, once you see how it's done. Now, I will tell you that in both Android and iPhones, I use an application called Filmic Pro. That's Filmic Pro, Filmic Pro. It's about 19 bucks, but it's a pro style, and I would even say even for moderate user, video application that's specific for shooting video like pro style. Even though you may say, well, Buzz, I'm not a pro, it'll make you look like a pro. There's all kinds of cool things that it'll do. Because if you've ever gone in a room and it's a lot of fluorescent lighting, and when you shoot the video or you shoot even a picture and it's all amberish, you know, it has that kind of amber glow, you can actually go in with your finger and on the screen of your phone, change the aperture on the fly with your finger and make it turn brighter or darker depending on what you want. Lock it. You can lock the focus too, because sometimes all these cameras are autofocus. So sometimes people go, man, I'm getting a headache watching this video because it keeps focusing, defocusing, focusing, defocusing. You can actually lock that focus in on the subject matter, so you won't get that that variable focus in focus type of thing that happens. So $19, Filmic Pro changes this into an HD cinematic kind of gig, and it's just nuts. So as you start doing the math, you gotta start believing that it's way less expensive than buying one of these big honkers. So if you buy like a DSLR, like a digital camera like this one is around $500-600, and it can be more expensive than that. And that doesn't even have the mic on it or anything. That's just the camera itself. So for half of what this costs, you can get this guy, and it shoots, I would say, arguably as good as these guys. There are more features on these and stuff like that. But for everybody else out there, buy a $39 case, $149 on the lens, 25 here, 30 here. You know, you're really killing it right there. And then these will tripod mount on any kind of tripod. So if it's a small Manfrotto that I just showed you, this little guy here, $19, or you want to just go buy a regular tripod, get them for like 39, so that it's up at this level, like when you're shooting, it fits on any tripod. So if you have an existing tripod, don't buy one, just hook it up to these guys. It'll mount. These, by the way, also this frame has a mount right here, so you can actually do it in what they call portrait. This is landscape, this is portrait. That's another thing I should tell you, is that a lot of people who do videography with any kind of regularity, they'll shoot in landscape, this long kind of almost HD kind of feel, and instead of the portrait. Portrait's used in IGTV. I think Periscope shoots in, I think you can switch Periscope to landscape as well. But portrait is quite a bit of what you'll find a lot of people pushing content out with. But when you get like this, it's going to be lights out. You're going to be like, this is so cool. Okay, one last thing on frames. This one is made by a company called Padcaster. It tripod mounts. This is a small iPod or iPad mini. This is a wide angle lens on the front here. Has mounts for microphones. These are like $169 for these frames. There's a company called Iographer that makes a plastic version of this that holds all different kinds of iPads for about $69 for their frame. It's pretty good quality. I mean, it's not as industrial, because this is a metal frame with kind of an urethane insert that kind of encapsulates your iPad here and holds it. The lens can be, you know, $40 or $50 on for this kind of lens. Again, just tripod mounts. So a lot of times people like these kinds of things, because then they'll not only capture video with this, they'll edit it right on, and you can do it on your phone too. The phone does more than just capture. It allows you to edit, push out to social. In fact, in Filmic, when you record, you can say, well, I want to push this out to, you know, Facebook, Twitter, whatever. You tell it, so that when you're done doing it, you have a limited amount of editing tools in there. You can just push the video right out. One word about that is that if everyone on this call is thinking, well, I'm not a video editor, neither am I. I'm more of a videographer. I like shooting more than editing. Editing drives you nuts. But thank God in the modern world, even when you're watching TV, all the things that we watch are these hard cuts. Nobody's doing these fancy transitions too much anymore. It's all hard cuts. So if you did a bunch of hard cuts and you stitch them end to end, a lot of people just don't even think about it. They just go, yeah, I've seen that, because we're accustomed to it, because we watch it at home. But that's a really thing to think about. So and speaking of editors, if you do capture video and you want to edit it, if you're a Mac user, iMovie is fine. If you're a PC user, there's a number of things out there that that people use. I'm trying to think of, well, Adobe makes a couple of inexpensive ones, then they make expensive ones like Premiere, and Apple makes a Final Cut Pro, which is, you know, more pro level stuff. You know, you'll just do fine with some of these other. There's one called Filmora that I like. Filmora is a cross-platform one. There's a few out there, and just kind of play with them. Believe it or not, what you can do with a little thing like iMovie is just breathtaking. I mean, you know, it's grown so much that the stuff that people are doing with iMovie today is what the pros were doing with, you know, with Final Cut and with Adobe Premiere way back. So no shame there. You know, it's just easy, quick cut, add titles, music, that kind of thing. Let me see. Anything else, Laura, that struck you that you want me to touch on? That, because that's a lot of the gear part.
We do have a few different questions about some of the things that you talked about.
Sure.
So one of them is if you could recommend different brands of mics for the different price ranges. And I
Mhm.
know that you kind of touched on that, but maybe you could just give us the quick overview of the different levels of microphones.
Yeah, let me see. I had one listed here. Yeah, there's one called Takstar. That's Takstar, Takstar. The one that I'm going to feature in the PDF is $20.93, shotgun mic. Boya still makes a nice compact mic for $32.95. That's Boya. You know, those are two known companies out there. Good thing that you might, and I do this too, is I'll buy a mic from um, Amazon, and I'll go, it looks like it's a pretty solid deal, because you know you read the specs and all that, and then you get it, and you're like, oh, this is not really getting it. It's either the use, the way the build design isn't really, you know, they call it build quality. If the build quality is wonky, where you feel like this thing could crack if you put it in your bag in a rough way, because a lot of times people will just stuff stuff in when they're on the go, throw it in their backpack. You don't want stuff that busts like that. So you have to look at what they call build quality. So take a look at these microphones. If you get them and you don't like them, you can return them. That's the way of the world. So that's kind of cool, because then you can really find the one you really want and say, okay, it's worth the money.
Buzz, do they all come with this? Did none of them come with a stand? Do you need to buy the tripod for all of the microphones?
Yeah, since microphones either mount on expensive cameras like this one, or they'll mount on a frame like this $25 frame, they're cold shoe adapters. Most all of these shotgun mics or microphones in general will come with this type of cold shoe mounting. There's also a mount called a quarter 20 mount, which is the size of this threaded screw thing. But most of them will come with cold shoe mount, because that's a typical way that microphones connect to these devices, and that's already there. But what they mount to, whether it's a frame like this or a stand like this, they don't come with those. So
And do you need to get any type of shields to drown out sounds, foam sound shields, other than what it comes with?
no, I think that, you know, when you learn the technique of using these, depending on the environment, you begin to kind of figure out, you know, um, where you need to be, how close you need to be, and sometimes people go, well, I'm so close, I'm like right up on their chin. And again, that is that wide angle thing that you want to make sure that if you're using a shotgun mic, you want to make sure you're setting yourself up with a wide angle shot, or you want to find a quieter place. Sometimes if I'm in somewhere, even with a microphone that will attenuate some of the external noises, I'll say, hey, do you mind if we go over here and do this shot, or try to find some place that's quieter. Um, Whenever you're doing audio, like even in a room like this, you want to make sure you either have carpeting or furniture or something that sucks up a lot of that, you know, ambient or superfluous noise, so that you know don't sound either echoey, or you know, or you don't hear a lot of other stuff banging around. Same thing holds true with shotgun mics. You want to make sure that you kind of, you know, set yourself up for success when you capture.
But speaking of that, what type of recording equipment? You mentioned using your phone, but what other types of recording equipment might people use for amateurs, as well as in a classroom? So you're in a setting where there's all kids making noise, and each group might have something. Any recommendations for that?
You're setting me up. There is a recommendation, and I really like this one, because it wouldn't be one that you would expect, um, but it's one I'm going to show you right now. um, this one I kind of tripped on someone asked me this question before, and it led to this. I'll show you what it is. Okay. So this is a type of a GoPro type of camera, and I mounted it on this frame. And this frame, I think, is now 29 bucks. Has the pistol grips, cold shoe adapters that we've talked about today. The slides on, and then I take a microphone, and I put the microphone in the lower level on this one, like this, and then this microphone plugs into this GoPro camera. And the problem with GoPros, as you guys know, is the audio is horrible, because it's got a little tiny baby mic in it. And you can't hear anything. So you get these really great 180 buttery panoramic type of shots. And it's kind of a bit of a fisheye lens in these things, but they're super wide angle. and they shoot, believe it or not, this little guy right here. It's I think this camera is now 349 or something like that, or 299. It shoots in 4K. So it's like really accomplished. But you plug into the side, like right here, and then into your microphone, and then it captures this really terrific thing, and you can get very close and shoot a bunch of students working, or there was a guy doing woodworking for a CTE class, for a career tech ed class, and we got right up on him with this with this setup, and shot really tight when he was routing, and we kind of went, just panned along like that, and it was really cool. So you're spending like around $300 for this, you know, $30 for that, and then again using a shotgun mic like this for, you know, depending on which one you want to get, for 39 or 59 or $20, worked out just fine. And it was really a cool setup. And it mounts, again, I have it mounted on one of those Manfrotto tripods, like right here, where you can hold it like with your hand like this and then move it around. And that's a really cool setup to shoot a lot of different kinds of video, because again, it shoots tight and very wide and really high quality. The biggest problem with this guy, as you guys may know if you have this little bugger, is the audio is just awful. You can't hear anything. And by the way, because this cable connects to an audio device, it uses like a headphone jack, like right here. I don't know if you can see it on camera. And I plug the mic right into that. Well, guess what? The little cube that I showed you, this Rode guy that you can clip on people, connects to this as well. So if you said, well, the shotgun mic was okay, Buzz, but they were a little bit further away, you still can use this type of microphone, or you can do a wired lavalier. In fact, wired lavaliers, they have like a 25-foot cable. I mean, it's long, and no one sees it because it's on the floor. And then it goes to the person that you're shooting, and they have the lav mic on their lapel, and you're still getting that great booming audio. And those things are only like $30, the wired ones. They have a little tiny button battery in them. Like a garage remote, or some other, it has those little button batteries. It uses that, so it's self-powered. But you can do those kind of things. So if you say, well, I don't have $199 for this guy, but I want to do lapel, you can go on, and I'll put a link in on your URL sheet for wired lavalier mics. It has a little wind muff on it as well, not a dead cap, but just a little sponge thing on the end. So just, there are inexpensive ways to get around this. But if you have a GoPro, or you're thinking about getting one, you can double down and make it into a really cool thing. Because some people go, I don't want to use my phone. I just don't want to, you know, and so that's a workaround.
We have a few other questions, a recommendation on entry-level gimbal.
Yeah, I'll tell you what is that there's a load of them out there, and some are really good, and some are so-so. They usually are battery, either they have, usually most of them have a lithium battery, so they self-charge, or you can charge them. It just depends on what you're shooting with it. I know people that do a lot of action shooting and want a gimbal because they're moving around a lot. I would suggest this: if you're doing that kind of thing, try some of these frames where you're panning and scanning yourself, where you're holding it manually, and see if you're getting the kind of effect, the output that you want. If not, in a gimbal, which then has this beautiful maintenance of keeping it, the camera, like level and performing, you know, anyhow, you see people move the gimbal around, the camera just completely floats like in space. That's kind of the reason, because they're moving around a lot and they don't want everyone to get sick like they're on a roller coaster ride. But gimbals can be $1.99 or more, depending on one. I think there's some cheap ones out there now, but just depends on the application.
And are you familiar with, let's see, we had Michelle mentioned that they're using, I'm trying to find where are you, Michelle? WeVideo in their district. Are you familiar with it?
Very familiar with WeVideo, and big fan, because WeVideo runs on Chromebooks, if people are using Chromebooks, and does a pretty good job of it. Has a ton of features, and it's not a heck of a lot of money. In fact, I know the guys over there, and I'm a big fan of their stuff. It's funny, Michelle, I was thinking to myself, what's that other one that's web-based? Because you don't find many web-based editors out there, not many. And WeVideo is probably one of the stars of the story. I mean, they're really good, and they got a great trial thing going on. And speaking of that, if any of you are thinking about doing even podcasting, where you can use these microphones. Like somebody said, well, I can't really expense a big microphone, like get up and go like this. You can use, again, this $29 or $39 thing, mount it to your Monfrado thing, and record. Now, the problem is that once you record it, what do you do with it? Well, most podcasters pick a platform, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or they usually have a platform. There's like Anchor, Stitcher. I use one called Buzzsprout, just because I like the name for some crazy reason. But Buzzsprout does a cool thing. Like when you record your podcast, it broadcasts out to all of those, to TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, in one shot. It's really cool. And right now for educators, Buzzsprout is free. So if you said, hey, I came up with this idea of narrative instruction where teachers would do short audio recordings because maybe they think they're video, they don't want to be on camera, some people don't, and they just want to record their voice and give instruction that way. So I would go look at Buzzsprout with their free offer. It's all the bells and whistles. They're not holding back on anything, so you'll get the same ability to broadcast to any. So if somebody goes, oh, I'm on Apple Podcast, fine, doesn't matter, or I'm on Stitcher, or I'm on Spotify, you're good. The minute you record it, they post it up. It's painless. And they give you all kinds of tips, videos. Buzzsprout is the name of it. Go check it out. Also, one other thing is that if and you'll hear this, I'm going to post Laura's interview that I did for my podcast tonight. So be listening for that, because she does a shout out to all her students. So it's kind of fun. But anyway, we recorded that, and we do a lead in with music, what they call an intro and an outro with music. And all those music beds are paid for. You got to buy them, either through subscription or you pay it per license. Well, a company called Soundstripe, it's soundstripe.com. Again, I think their deal is all free now for sound beds. I think there's some minor limitations, but it's better than dead air, just where you go, hi, I'm Michelle, thanks for joining my podcast. And, and it's like where Michelle could have or Laura could have a really great lead in, or let's say Lamont wanted to have some kind of, cool lead into what he was going to talk about. It really gives ambiance to it. So check out Soundstripe for their music beds. I use a guy out of Toronto that they have on there. His name is Jesus, Drew blank. I'll think of it, but I use him like all the time. That's how come I know his name. Oh God. But anyway, he's terrific. And Alter Ego is his name. And he does some really cool, funky things. And you'll listen to them when you hear Laura and I later on tonight. And it's just fun. It's just, go have fun with this stuff. Don't make it like work. There's no perfect science to it, but there is a science to the cabling, which we talked about, TRS and TRRS. So if you have questions about that, you're just a little uncertain, once you get the cable combo, you won't even have to think about it again. You'll be good. And again, my wife goes nuts about this. I buy stuff all the time and try it and then send it back because I don't like it. It doesn't suit me. I don't like the color, you name it. The battery dies too quickly. You just make sure you keep your receipts and stuff, because this, until you get to the stuff that really worked for you, you can throw it in your bag and just go with it. Make it easy for yourself.
Yeah.
Laura, any more questions?
Yeah. Speaking about throw it in the bag, I was attracted to the Monfredo because it is simple. And maybe my abilities. So is that the one that was, one you can carry it simple and.
Yeah, simple's best. Just keep in mind that with video.
Where do you get it from? The Monfredo.
The Monfredo. Oh, you can buy you're talking about the stand, the little stand, this little guy,
no,
right?
No, the whole thing. No, It was one thing. Oh, a shot that you had everything.
This guy. Yeah. You can buy this from B&H Photo. They sell Shure products. I don't know if Amazon does, but B&H does. $249 for the whole thing.
And Buzz, we're going to have links to everything on a list so that people can just get right to it, what they want to get, and they'll know, all the things that you talked about today.
One other thing, Huda, that I wanted to kind of talk about is this also is a great, like if you're doing, somebody invites you to a Zoom like this or a webcast of some kind, if this is connected to your phone, this setup, and you can wear headphones if you want. It's recommended that you do with the headphone jack that's in the back here. This is really great for webcasting because you're looking right at it. This microphone just rocks. I mean, little but mighty. I mean, unbelievable. So here's the whole kit and caboodle right here. You can just do
Yeah,
the whole thing.
that is the nice part.
Yeah, and
Working in a kaboom.
yeah, kit and caboodle. Yeah, and the good thing about it is, and I'll show you so you know how small this is. This goes here. There's actually a case. You'll love this. It rolls up and has a Velcro closure. So literally, you could take this whole thing. I'll take the mic off here if I can get it loosened there. And that's it right there. That's it. These 3 pieces, and it rolls up in its own little case. It's really
that's nice. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask if anyone has any other questions. We only have another minute left. And I was so hoping that Buzz could tell a story about his interaction with Steve Jobs,
All right, I'll make it quick. So I worked for Apple in early 2000s, and I had a chance of talking with Steve. He addressed a group of about 500 of us. We were all in this one ballroom, and the drill was if you wanted to ask him a question, you had to walk up to a microphone that was about 10 or 20 feet away from him. He was on a little bit of an elevated stage, and you would come up and you would say your name and where you were from and then your question. So I went up, and he still owned Pixar at the time. And so I went up and I go, "Hi, my name's Buzz Wood from Florida." And he immediately bristled at this because he's not a guy that messed around too much in short temper. And he looked off at his people, and I can hear him. And he goes, "I'm going to fire this guy." And he goes, "He's messing with me," because Toy Story 2 had just come out, and Buzz and Woody were like obviously the 2 characters, and Buzz and Wood, who would have a name like this? And so he thought I was messing with him. And so by then I'm hearing all this chatter. I'm thinking, I don't really want to ask any question. I want to just get out of here before he cans me. And so I asked a question, and he dismissed me. And then the next guy came up. This is the funny part of the story. He came up and he said, "I love working here at Apple. It's like my dream job." And Steve goes, "Is there a question?" And he goes, "Yeah. He goes, I was thinking that maybe we could run a commercial for education." And this is way in the early days. And he goes, "We're not going to do that." And so the guy starts walking away, and he goes, "Hey, wait a minute." He goes, "I got an idea. Why don't we fire you and run the commercial with what we pay you?" And actually people laughed, and it wasn't meant to be that funny, but the guy goes, "No, I want my job." He goes, "All right, go sit down." But I was glad I wasn't the second guy, but that was my Buzz Wood moment with Steve Jobs. And I'll never forget that one. It's crazy.
Buzz Wood. Who would have known?
Who would have known? But I got one more, is that I actually got a chance to meet Dan Pink, who's now become a good friend of mine. And if you don't know Daniel Pink, he wrote A Whole New Mind and book When, and The Cell is Human, and this goes on and on. But anyway, I was at a conference in Tampa, and there was about 3,000 people watching this guy, and he's choking to death on stage. I mean, he's really caught. He probably had a cold or something. So I'm in the middle of a whole bunch of people that are riveted to him because he's a big keynote speaker, right? So I get out and walk past everyone, and they're all grumbling like, "Yeah, why didn't you go to the bathroom beforehand?" They'd be yelling. So I went in the back, because in the back of the ballroom were these inverted bottles of water. You've seen the dispensers where you just do it. So I got him a cup of water, walked right up the main aisle and handed it to him. And he was talking about empathy as a practice. And I said, "Just trying to show empathy." And from that point, we became good buddies. And I just saw him when I met Laura down in Miami Beach for FETC, for the Florida Education Technology Conference, or the Future of Education Technology Conference, I should say. But anyway, a really cool guy. And it's just funny how you meet people in the oddest ways. And if you ever met him, he's the most, nonchalant guy. You wouldn't even know that he ever was an author or anything, for that matter, but a sweetheart of a guy, really cool guy. So it's just, those are my 2.
Buzz, that leads me into, you're a sweetheart of a guy too. Thank you so much for what you've given us, your time, your expertise. The information is so valuable. I know you've changed me already, because I've already got mine.
Well, I will say this in closing. Thank you so much for having me. And if all of you are feeling a bit overwhelmed, it's fine. It's just the way that it rolls. There's so much about it. We could literally go on for another hour maybe. But again, we'll enumerate all this stuff, make it easy for you. If you have any follow-on questions, make sure Laura gets them, or you can write me at buzz@thebuzzoneducation.com, and go check out my podcasts, and great to be with all of you. Fun.
Yeah, those of you at NJCU, Buzz will be coming. We actually had him scheduled to develop a workshop for us. He was going to be coming on campus. So we are going to reschedule that. And I bought some of the fun toys for us to play with as well. But we'll have a good time when that happens, and hopefully soon. But thank you everyone for coming. I really appreciate your time. I miss all of you. I'm hoping we can get back together soon. And for those of you that are new with us, thanks for coming. Look for our schedule of more webinars. We're doing so many more this coming weeks. So it's been great. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks again, everyone.
Thanks, Buzz.
Stay safe and healthy.
You too.
Bye now.